All right, and we are live. And look, there's Sam.
Hello.
She's just on time. We do have someone else who's going to be joining us a little bit later, but before we get started with this discussion, I'm going to go through my standard, housekeeping, everything that I usually say at the start of these. So bear with me for a couple of minutes here. Um, so Hello, and welcome to our October Listening Club, where we listen to In Rainbows by Radiohead. And I'm very excited that you guys wanted to talk to me about this one because I was a little hesitant about picking a um, Radiohead album. Like, there's so much to talk about with each of them. And, you know, they're different beasts each time. So I picked this one specifically so we could get into one thing, and I'm sure we're going to get into it. Um, This is our listening club, but we actually have two other clubs here at Dragonfly Arts. We have a monthly movie club that met last Friday, and you can find that discussion on House or Hausu up on our um, YouTube page. We also have our quarterly book club meeting this month where we read Love in the Time of Cholera, and we'll be having that discussion in a couple of days here on Wednesday. So if you want to see what we're going to be picking next, which we will be showing, movie, music, and also our new book club pick that's going to run from November through January, you can get on the Facebook group, and on the first of the month, we'll be posting those picks. You can also give me suggestions on our Facebook group or ask to join these meetings. I only allow a few people on the calls just to keep the conversation from getting too out of hand. But if you're watching live and you comment, we can actually see that and respond to you. If you're watching it on the replay, you can still comment on it, and I still want to talk about it. And if you like us and you like what we do, you can support us over on Patreon for as little as $2 a month. Right now, there's nothing behind the paywall. Everything is free to our members on the Facebook group. But we're working on changing that. So we actually have a lot of really exciting things that are happening right now. So join us in the Facebook group and find out what those things are. I got through that way faster. Did I forget something?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, anyways. um, so In Rainbows, it's Radiohead's seventh studio album released in 2007. And it is also their first album that they released after their record contract with EMI. So they actually had no contractual obligations to release this album. And right before coming out with this, a lot of the members produced their own solo albums. So Tom York, who is generally considered the face of Radiohead, the singer, songwriter, he released his first solo album in 2006. However, the lead guitarist also was working on doing soundtracks at the time, and the drummer was also making music, but he wanted Radiohead to get back together and didn't produce his own music. He just was a huge proponent of this, and so they actually recorded these songs February 2005 through June 2007. And I think quite a few of them were actually Tom York's that he was going to put on his solo album. So, had you guys listened to this album before? Are you Radiohead fans?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to them a lot in high school, but surprisingly, I hadn't listened to this album all the way through before.
Yeah, I don't know if I listened to this album all the way through from start to finish. I think I definitely had to have, but
I
this.
remember. Oh, go on.
No, you first.
I remember when this came out. My friends were describing it as underwhelming, and I'm trying to remember the reason why. and I don't know if I agree underwhelming is the right word, but it might have colored or unfairly biased not my opinion towards it, but it might have been the reason I didn't give it the listen to that I thought I should have back then.
I think that's fair. It's a different vibe than their previous albums.
Yeah, I feel like I remember everybody being disappointed by it when it came out. At least my friends. And we were all Radiohead fans.
Yeah.
The big reason why I picked this album is because they had it as pay what you can, including you could get the album for free. So it was, especially with them coming off of their record deal, this was a new thing that was, I mean, this album was released the day after my 17th birthday, and I remember it being like, I can get an album for free? Hell yeah. Was more the vibe that I remember having with this album, but it's not quite as edgy as their previous albums.
Mm-hmm.
Do you I was going to ask, like, do you think that the warmer tone has to do with their switch up and why they went with the pay what you can or pay what you want rather?
What do you mean the warmer tone? You mean the less edgy?
Less edgy.
Oh, I always assumed that had nothing to do with the marketing of it. So I don't know.
You know, I just spent a lot of time thinking about these comparisons. So, um, do you guys have a favorite song on the album?
I can never answer that question, but I do have a favorite 3-song sequence. Like, I usually start listening to the album at Nude, Weird Fishes, and All I Need, because it's a much different vibe than the first 2 tunes. And if you held a gun to my head, I would probably say Weird Fishes, but that's because it's an amazing teaching moment and it's an incredibly weird song structure. So
Yeah.
that's just geekery. But there isn't anything I don't like on this album. The reason I like it is because I'm a song guy and I think it's their best set of songs. I think it's better than what's the one with Paranoid Android? OK Computer.
Yeah.
In terms of songs, I think the melodies are better. I think this is like a fully mature band writing best songs.
It's interesting that you said that because I know that a lot of these songs were written without this album in mind. And so I wonder if, because I find that like lyrically and even like musically, it's a lot more personal sounding. Like a lot of their older stuff has to do with like things happening in the world and like political things almost. And this one feels a lot more internal, intimate, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does have a very different vibe. I think that part of the reason why it may have been perceived as like, at least on its initial release, as not as good, at least by like fans, especially like younger fans like me and my friends, is that there is very little differentiation. Like that was the experience that I had listening through the whole thing today, is like it's a little hard to separate the songs in your mind. I do really like what's it called? I had the track list up a second ago. I like Weird Fishes and All I Need, but those are really the only two that kind of stand out to me. So,
What about you, Sam? Do you have a favorite song?
I don't know if I have one favorite. I liked House of Cards. I thought the whole album kind of flowed nicely as almost a mellow sort of psychedelic rock track. I mean, it's sort of, I guess Radiohead is somewhat psychedelic anyway, but this felt It reminded me of some psychedelic rock playlists I've come across on YouTube, I guess, when I listened to it today. I like the opening track, 15 Step.
Tim, we were just talking about our favorite song. Do you have one?
Not really. I think the one that I the things that I liked because of the groove. I liked Body Snatchers. And there was another one further into the. I was listening to it in the car, so a lot of times I wasn't able to find out what the name of the tracks were. But Nude really stood out to me as well, but more because it felt like an ambient tune. Or no, not an ambient tune. It felt like kind of like a trip hop tune almost to me. But those are the two. There was one later in the album between track 5 and 10 that just had this cook and groove that I really dug. But I don't know which one it was.
Right, trying to pull these tracks out while listening in a car without the names in front of you.
Yeah, I kept reaching up and switching between Waze and the Amazon Music so I could check out what the name of the track was, and then switching back to Waze so I could keep driving.
Because I ask this every single time.
Yep.
Yeah, I mostly wanted to talk about this because it feels like such a switch over in the industry when they released this track. It was kind of like this idea of like, oh, wait, we don't have to do something and be beholden to. I'll put this up. This is a nice imagery. This is the cover without the words on it.
Oh, really?
I like
Yeah.
the cover, that artwork.
Wait, that's the cover without the letters? Seriously? I would have never.
Rainbows 20 times, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they released this without any prior publicity, and their only publicity was releasing it for set your own price. It was initially just self-released, which I think is such a interesting thing that happened at this time. This was, I want to say, like peak piracy times.
Right before streaming, right? But streaming music became a popular thing.
Yeah, I believe there still was like iTunes. iTunes was kind of the king of the streaming and buying tracks online game. But yeah, I mean, most of us just pirated everything. Because you used to be able to import that into iTunes.
Yeah, going through, downloading a song one by one, and like suddenly having an entire album that was gifted to you. Tim, did you listen to any other Radiohead albums?
Nope, didn't have time. I actually just listened to this for the first time on my trip home today because I've been so damn busy. I didn't have a chance. So
Yeah, because I remember you saying when we were talking about this album before that you didn't know a lot of Radiohead.
I didn't know any Radiohead. I haven't listened to them at all.
One of the things that we were talking about before you joined the call was how much more personal and intimate that this album sounds than some of their previous stuff. So,
I mean, the big frustration for me in sitting down and having this conversation with you guys now is that I really couldn't absorb the lyrics in the way that I listened to this. So really, all I have to go on right now is the music, because I just really couldn't grab the lyrics the way I would like to do before having a conversation like this.
It feels to me like the lyrics are much less important on this album than on their other albums. So you're probably fine.
Oh, there you go.
I feel like there's two different things that I'm hearing here. So I think I want to just like tone it down. Do you think that this production feels more like distant and cerebral, or do you think it feels more personal in your listening experience?
You mean compared to their previous work?
No, compared to those two descriptions. Like, do you find this album to be more distant or more personal? Because
Well, I mean, he's always got the alienation lyrics, even though he's sort of real minimalist on this album. I think it's both at the same time. It's kind of a Bowie thing, you know? And I'm not really like, I have to listen to things a long time to start paying attention to lyrics. But I think there's sort of both happening at the same time, that it's sort of personal sounding, but also he's kind of alienated. He's kind of an alienated dude. And in a good and charming way, and it's really pleasing to listen to. But I kind of think it's both. But you know, I didn't like the album before this, the Hail to the Thief one, right? And I didn't really listen to them much before OK Computer and Kid A. So this just, I mean, to compare it to those albums, and I'm sure there's others I'm missing, but that's my main reference point for them, and it's completely different from both of those, I think.
This one felt introspective, less political to me.
Yeah, and I think more ambient.
Ambient's a good word.
I think it's safe to say this it's more of a vibe.
Yeah. And I think that's because what is his name? Johnny, the guitarist. What is his last name? He was doing lots of soundtracks, and he still does a lot of stuff. He's been active since this time, and that it's not unrelated to his work in soundtracks.
I'm getting a weird buzzing sound from somebody, and I don't know who.
Yeah, there's a noise.
I think it's me.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of the Ben's OK Computer and Kid A back in the day.
I am interestingly a fan of Amnesiac. That is my favorite Radiohead album, which is...
That's after this, right?
No, it's before this. It's before Hail to the Thief.
I haven't heard that one.
But I think after this, they did like a lot of compilation and live albums, and then their next full studio album was like 2011.
Yeah.
But this was like, I mostly pick this album, and I pick a lot of these albums, it turns out, is turning points for the bands.
I don't think I've ever listened to Amnesiac. None of this looks familiar.
Well, here I am, broadening your horizons.
This is one with High and Dry. Don't.
I think High and Dry is on Ben's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, Ben's. Trying to remember Amnesiac.
I'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah. I like the two, what I consider studio albums after this, King of Limbs and A Moon-Shaped Pool, I think are also excellent. And now that you're making me think about it, I think they're not as different from In Rainbows as like In Rainbows is different from like Kid A. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of a groove that's not like what band is this, you know? And it's really, really good work. In fact, one of them, I get the two mixed up. One of them has just the most, I think it's King of Limbs. It's got the most amazing grooves and rhythms because he had two drummers. In fact, they had two drummers on the tour, and they were doing like this really West African thing of like really, really loose rhythms. And even some of it is programmed. And anyway.
They do a really cool mix of like organic sounds and electronic sounds.
Yeah.
Especially with their drums. So I was really happy that you liked this album on the call because I do want to.
Yeah, and Tom York also drums on there's a version of this on YouTube where they perform it live in their producer's basement, and it's called In the Basement. And they did both In Rainbows and King of Limbs live in that basement. And it's I completely lost my train of thought. That was relevant. that was relevant for some reason. We'll get back to that. We'll edit this out.
It would be very hard to do, like, because we listened to Nirvana Unplugged. It would be very hard to do any Radiohead Unplugged.
And it does exist, but they did it on their YouTube channel as part of like a COVID series.
Huh.
Wait, like an unplugged is what you're saying?
Well, from the basement. It's a
Oh, yeah,
live
that's
studio, but it's not unplugged.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's like all kinds of electronics and electric guitars and drum
Yeah.
sets and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you
But
could
it is
perform
played
radio.
live.
I just mean I don't know if you could perform
Perform
any
it.
Radiohead songs acoustically.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they don't sound exactly like the record, but they get all those sounds. Like they spent a lot of time, especially the two guitarists, because there's no keyboard player in the band. There's just people that on occasion hop over to keyboards, and they work really hard to get sounds like. And I also have heard when they perform live that when they have loops live, they create the loops on stage. They're not just hitting the play button and just doing tracks, which is like you can get good and quick at that, but that's like, just a testament to how hard they work at getting the sounds right and sounding fresh. And yeah. Has anybody, I have never seen them live, which is one of my great regrets. Has anybody here seen them live?
I have not.
Heard nothing but great things.
I submitted to Highway Robbery to see them in 2006.
Oh, where was that? Was it a festival?
Greek Theater in LA, actually.
Oh, nice. That would be the perfect place I'd want to see them. What'd you think? Do you remember?
It was a memorable show. Yeah, I loved it.
And 2006, that would have been Hail to the Thief tour. It was before this, right?
Yeah, before this. But not long before this.
Well, based on your timeline, they were working on it when they did that gig.
Yeah, so they would have been working on this album, and a part of me wants to like look up this tour because it is in between these two albums where there was like a huge switchover and everybody was doing solo work.
Yeah.
So I am curious about the background on that.
I had also read that this was like to me, this seems like a really well-produced, well-written, really cohesive album, but apparently it was very difficult for the band. So
actually their management suggested that they break up prior to this.
Oh, well, there you go. That would explain some of the difficulty.
Yeah, because I think everybody was going their own direction. Like I said at the start of this, they left their thing, so they were done with their record contract. They didn't need to make another record, and so they just kind of like took a break, which I think is important for musicians to kind of come back, and you need things to write songs about. You need experiences to write songs about. So, which also, I'm talking myself in circles here a little bit. So, but that probably also leans more into the personal aspects of this.
Yeah, and I can easily imagine it because it's sort of all these great musicians with great ideas, but it's clearly Tom's project. And I don't think anything gets in the final mix that Tom's not cool with, right? And so depending on his state of emotions, you could be having a really fun album or you could be having a really difficult album.
So several of the songs for this were actually performed in 2005 by Tom York from the web series From the Basement, which is the one that's his producers. So I wonder if that's what you were referring to earlier.
Well, no, it's the whole band. And at least what I saw on YouTube, it's marketed as Radiohead. It's not marketed as a Tom York solo thing.
Man, this guy's having a lot of things in his basement then.
They are still touring.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think one of the reasons I haven't seen them is the two chances I got was like at a festival, and I am just sort of like so not up for festivals unless I can helicopter in. So, but I heard that they're really, really great at festivals and they like doing it.
Hmm.
So I'm torn, but not torn enough to go to Coachella or whatever.
Okay, so I did actually finally read about this 2006 tour. They specifically went on that tour to try and get together as a band again.
Oh,
They hadn't toured in the 2 years prior to that, but they had been trying to work on this album for so long before that that this was after their management suggested that they break up. Well, um,
yeah. You know, one of my theories about this album and their sort of overall thing, this is like a band album. You know, there's some Radiohead albums like Kid A that are kind of like, I think of as laptop albums, even though we didn't really have the technology back then to do it, but like mostly programmed and not much band. Whereas OK Computer is like a band album, right? And that's probably, I hadn't listened to Radiohead much, and one of my nephews turned me on to Kid A. And I think this is the first album that came out after Kid A that I liked, because I remember I still don't like the one before, the Hail to the Thief one, so much, although there's, I'm sure, some great stuff. I just can't make it through it. But I think it's definitely a band album, especially in the context of the more laptop-y sounding albums. Speaking of which, Tim, I think you would really like Kid A just because of all of the programming ambient elements in it. It's a complete departure from OK Computer, right? But classic in its own way. Like I could tell you it's two different bands and you would believe me. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I'm blind as far as Radiohead is concerned, so I wouldn't be able to compare anything to anything else but this one at this point in the game.
Go listen to Kid A. It's like a different band.
I mean, one of the things for this album for me, and I said that I couldn't really take time to do the lyrics, but the vocal style is really not my thing in this album. It's the melodies are the vocal melodies are really flat, and yeah, and this is not a criticism, because I hear a lot of singers who sing in this manner. It's just really not my thing. It's hard to wrap my brain around it, and sometimes it feels, in the case of Nudes, which feels like a trip hop tune to me, it actually kind of works because the voice just becomes another sound, and the lyrics are not necessarily important in that context as much as the sound of the voice is. But I'm totally out of my depth with this particular music, and these tracks are very dynamic in terms of what kinds of songs and what the grooves are. I mean, you have Nudes, which sounds something like trip hop to me, and then you've got tunes that I hear the drums going and it just sounds like a straightforward rock tune, and then I hear some syncopation that sounds a bit funky, and so I really need to listen to this album more to really get a sense of what it is. And this is a question for the group. Is this just a whole bunch of songs thrown together, or is there some singular thing about this album that makes this album sound like something different from another album that they've done? Or I don't know.
sorry, I'm thinking. So give me a second here. I want to make sure that
I don't think it's a concept album like Dark Side of the Moon, but I think it's a really cohesive album. One of the things I mentioned at the outset that you missed, Tim, was that I don't have a favorite song, but I do have a favorite 3-song sequence, right? Which is Nude, Weird Fishes, and the one after that,
All I Need.
All I Need. And I think it's their best collection of songs, like the best songs they've done. But I don't think it's like anything approaching a concept album. It was probably the 10 best songs they had those 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't thinking about whether or not it was a concept album, but it it feels like a collection of songs that are just there because those are the songs that the band had available to do at the time. There wasn't a sitting down of the band members and saying, okay, let's write something that's, who we are, what we are, and what we're about right now. It feels like random tunes to me,
Which it was. It was a bunch of random tunes that I imagine were all arranged together. So I think the songwriting happened very separately for them, but I think part of the reason why it's hard to distinguish between the songs, definitely at points in time, is because they all got together in the studio and worked on their parts separately. And I imagine there's a kind of cohesion of like how the sound design moves throughout this. But to go back to what you were saying about his vocals, a part of me like agrees with you. I don't view his like vocals as vocals. It's almost more rhythmic than it is melodic in any sort of way. And I think that they do a really great job of playing with rhythms. I mean,
Yeah,
Weird
I love the
Fishes
vocals and
and
the harmonies. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of adding more to the layered textures than it is anything else, but they still have lyrics to them that, have words and is Tom York trying to express something, I hope. Um,
Yeah.
they're they're a little bit more obscure. Um,
Yeah, I feel like this style of vocalization kind of carries through into Kid A. So if you'd like something more pronounced as like traditional rock vocals, probably their earlier albums would be a good bet.
Yeah. Okay, computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about the one thing that strikes me is the one thing that is consistent between the tunes are the vocals. I think that's the one thing that holds the songs all together as an album, given how dynamic and diverse the musical material is.
Hmm.
so yeah, did you like it on a whole, Tim? We talked about this at the start, but you weren't here for that part of it.
I can't say because I just I don't feel like I've given the album the attention that it needs for me to be able to say whether I liked it or not. Um, it feels like it's still at a distance from me, and that I haven't really grasped. Aside from the little things that I caught and picked up on that I liked, the general atmospherics of Nude, the groove on something like Body Snatchers. And Videotape was kind of interesting as well in its own way.
Isn't that
But yeah,
crazy?
yeah,
Like,
I can't really say whether I like or dislike the album. I'm neutral on it at this point because I don't really understand what it is. Yeah.
And Tim, I just figured out what I bet was that song that had the really cool groove. It's probably Reckoner in 5 through 3, and it's a groove that I really, really like, but it's almost as much the sound design as the groove. Because any drum groove you play it on different sounds is going to sound different, but it's like really amazing sound design and some percussion overdubs.
Yeah. That's about where I think I was in the album when I heard whatever it was that I heard.
Yeah.
I wish I would have kept better notes, but it was hard to do while I had my hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah. Drive safely. That's important.
Should have taken the chauffeur out today while you're doing that, Tim. But I will say, I mean, I can't remember what I thought when I first heard this, but this has grown on me with repeat listenings like a lot. And when I'm listening to it now, I'm noticing things like all the time that I had noticed before or had forgotten about and stuff. And oddly enough, it's not so much groove stuff for me. It's just like the harmonies and just little sound design things like, oh wow, that thing is there, but I never noticed that thing other than as part of the overall whatever wall of sound or something like that. But I've really I listen to this album all the friggin' time when I'm in the mood for this kind of stuff, so I'm kind of biased.
I don't want to go back to just like the implications of what this album meant for the music industry, um, because it made $3 million in digital sales, which is more than they made from Hail to the Thief.
Wait, was
Which,
that from the pay what you want, or once it
yep,
got
from
up
the
on
Pay What You Want.
iTunes? Okay.
Um,
Well, you mean the band netted 3 million, or that overall sales was 3 million?
from their Pay What You Want online thing, they made $3 million from the digital sales. They also sold 3 million units total, and that's digital downloads and physical copies. So the box sets that they made from it generated $4 million. So they did make more off of the actual physical copy of it, but I think the important thing for this album was that they just released it. It was right when they signed with XL, but they did this without. They self-published this album. They went around everything to the point where EMI actually retaliated against them and released their own box set in the same week that they released this.
Oh, did they really? Of their previous
Mhm.
work?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of an asshole thing to do.
But that being said, this was a huge thing that was responded by a lot of artists. I mean, since then, we did Taylor Swift's album that she also released without telling her label that she was going to release it. Beyonce has done this. U2 did this as well. I think that might have been the album where they just put it on everybody's iPods for no reason, even though no one wanted it.
Slightly less popular than this movie, but yes.
Um, and a lot of like artists were just like, we should do this. Like, it kind of like sparked a movement within the industry of people wanting to leave their contracts and do something that was more self-published.
Yeah, I
That
think
being said, apparently Trent Reznor was like, not enough. They didn't do enough.
They didn't do
I,
enough.
who
Yeah,
did
he
you?
said the digital releases were a bait and switch because it was too compressed, that it devalued physical copies.
interesting. As an aside, I happen to be glancing at the Wikipedia page for this album, and what I read that in regards to the EMI retaliation, EMI was just recently under new ownership at the point when they put this album out. So that and from what I was read, it sounds like there's the new ownership was probably not happy because maybe they felt that it devalued the assets that they bought.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was kind of done as a retaliation against EMI. I think that they were not having a good time at EMI. I don't actually know a lot of the background of it, but I do know that they just left. And they didn't just publish this album, but they published like the next two albums as self-published.
Wow.
And had pretty good sales. Some of the other critiques about how they did this was actually, to go back to the Trent Reznor thing, because I just read this right now. He said that they didn't go enough and they compressed the digital release of it, and then his next album he released under Creative Commons license, which I hear about not at all.
I can't think of anybody that I'm not aware of any. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody releasing music under Creative Commons. It's a very common way of putting photographs and imagery out into the and writing, I think too. But I didn't know that anybody had put music out under a Creative Commons license.
Trent Reznor, he was inspired by Radiohead, but didn't think they went far enough.
Trent Reznor has had some funny things over the years. Except
He yelled at me once, so that is my.
He yelled at you.
He yelled at me one time.
Well,
He
on your behalf, I
apologized
don't like him.
later, but I still like the.
I feel like he's said a lot of things that are questionable and then come out and like totally reverse course afterwards.
Yeah, that's what he did to me. There were also quite a few artists that viewed this as an arrogant move that belittled smaller artists who, if you're releasing music online and you can choose to only pay for like one of them, I guess. I don't really understand the argument for it, but they said that it was belittling newer artists who don't have as much online presence.
Well, so so the thing about that is, I mean, all the bands that you talked about that followed in Radiohead's footsteps, they had all, I mean, Radiohead had benefited from 15 years of record label marketing budgets, right? So they could do that. They had a name, right? Same thing with Beyonce, same thing with, I forget the others. So it might have been related to that. Like, yeah, you can do that because you had, a record company's marketing department, supporting you for a decade or however long. And I don't know what was going on with record labels at that time, but it wasn't getting bigger. The budgets weren't getting bigger. It's not like now where it was completely gone, but it was, I'm pretty sure, going in the wrong direction for bands starting out, excuse me.
Yeah, I can see how that might feel like a bit of a slap in the face, where you have the entire reputation that Radiohead had at the time, that they can do 3 million in sales on a pay what you want like launch scheme, whereas up and coming artists don't have that luxury. So who's going to sit there and pay $9.99 for an album on iTunes when they're paying $1 for a Radiohead? Like, I kind of get that.
Right, but if a privileged artist doesn't take the step forward to do something like this, then who the hell is going to take the step forward? If you're a smaller artist, you don't have the resources to do this. So, who's going to take the first step if the privileged artists don't?
So
There you go.
they specifically said that this was a solution for Radiohead and not the industry. They didn't mean for this to be as much of a statement as it was taken as.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Pearl Jam decided to go on tour without consulting with Ticketmaster. I don't know who. I mean, and apparently, it seems long term that the attempt was a failure. But who else is going to stand up to Ticketmaster if not, a Pearl Jam? Not the little local rock garage band that's playing at the Star. Well, there is no Starwood anymore. Playing at the Whiskey. Them saying "fuck you" to Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster is going to say, "Yeah, fuck you back." So who takes the step forward if the band with resources doesn't take that step?
Do you think it was a successful step forward?
Right. What did it change though? Like,
I don't know.
The Pearl Jam thing or the Radiohead thing?
any of it.
Either.
Well, I don't think the Pearl Jam thing changed the industry because everybody's still kind of using Ticketmaster. Radiohead did to a degree because other artists followed in their footsteps, right? I mean, do you remember at the time, Tim, anybody else doing the Pearl Jam thing? No, it was just them.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people spoke up in support of them, but I don't remember anybody else willing to do it.
U2 didn't do it. The Rolling Stones didn't do it. None of the big acts that I knew.
All my favorite bands I didn't go to see this year because they were all going through Live Nation. It's like, nothing's going to change until we just stop and artists stop using those services.
Right. I don't know what the answer is. Every band, the bands have to do what's, ultimately what's right for them. And, I, you know, other people, you know, if you don't have that kind of support behind you, then you have to come up with something clever that can break through. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Capitalism sucks, and we all know that. How do we fight it? Well, yeah, we keep throwing stuff at the wall until something finally fucking sticks, I guess.
I
So
feel
let's
like
take this
the
picture as a Rorschach test. Oh, sorry.
no,
Let's
you're
changing
good.
subjects. Is this
um,
picture from the album, from that period of the time they were making the album?
I actually have no idea. I struggled to find a photo of all of them as a group that I could put on the slide.
Yeah.
A lot
I
of
don't
them
think
were
they do a lot of good photos.
surprisingly, yeah, low quality, and I think that they are not ones to put their faces on it.
Yeah, but if you look at this picture and you want to psychoanalyze it, right? It's just it doesn't look like a bunch of happy campers. And like if you wanted to pick, well, who is the alpha in this group of 5 individuals, you'd probably pick Tom, and everybody else looks kind of pissed off, right? They really get along. They're like I think of them as one of the more functional bands out there. But at the time of this, and Tim, you might have missed me saying this, but I heard that at the time of this, the recording of this, they were really, well, Rebecca said that their management suggested they break up. That it was a really tough time making this album, which doesn't surprise me that the management suggested they break up. Although I've never heard of it that way, where your manager's telling you break up. Usually your managers tell you to stick together no matter what.
Yeah, it's the first time that I've heard of management being like, "Hey, maybe it's time to call it quits." But I think also everybody was off doing their own solo projects during this time, so they were just like, "We still got our fingers in this pot, so
Yeah.
maybe they should stop wasting their time on this." Um,
Well, I'm glad they didn't. But yeah.
so we are
You know,
coming up on an hour here, so I was wondering if there was anything that anybody wanted to talk about in regards to this album or Radiohead.
I have a little geeky thing. They played on the Grammys, but it wasn't the band entirely. They did 15 Step on the Grammys that year, and they had the USC marching band uh, play with them. And while that sounds heinous, it totally works. And in fact, a guy that I used to perform with did the percussion arrangement, but it's only Tom and Johnny, right? So lead singer and the one of the guitarists. There's no drummer, there's no bass player because those people were replaced by the USC marching band, and Ed O'Brien, the taller guitarist on the far left, wasn't there either. So it was sort of Radiohead, but not. And then there was this really cool the USC folks did a documentary of putting together that whole thing. And I got to see my buddy working on the arrangement with the ensemble. But the best part is, and the commercial break before Radiohead played, they had to do sound check, and then there's this massive marching band on stage, so they had to do sound check with something. And the first big popular song that USC marching band played on was Tusk by Fleetwood Mac. And so they're playing Tusk by Fleetwood Mac with just lower brass and drumline. There was no, I'm sorry, it was just lower brass and drumline. There was no woodwinds and no trumpets and stuff. And just watching Tom York dance to the USC drumline play Tusk was just like worth the price of admission. He was just like, he was just super having fun. And that is my little aside.
funny to hear you say that because I was just going to randomly yell out Tusk and see if anybody knew what I was talking about when I did it.
Yeah. Well, it's anyway, for people of a certain age, you would maybe recognize that.
Yeah, and thinking about what smaller bands can do, and maybe somebody tried this, you know, and I'm just, and right now I'm thinking more about the Ticketmaster thing than the radio or the record company distribution or whatever. But I'm certain there's a way to apply it. Is that, you know, maybe a whole bunch of smaller bands get together and they crowd finance a tour, a small tour for themselves, or something. But I mean, Radiohead did what it could do with what it had, and you can't attack them for I don't think it's fair to attack them for at least trying something that's different that can change the way the industry runs. And if it's a failure, okay, great, but at least they tried something, and Pearl Jam tried something. And, bands just need to keep trying shit until we find a way to break the fucking system. And, I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass at this point.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't think anything is going to change until fans stop engaging, like stop listening, stop going to shows, stop spending money, and then things will definitely change.
Yeah.
But there are a few groups who have like removed their music from Spotify, and there are some who have vowed never to do any like big stadium Live Nation shows again. There was one that came out last year. I don't remember who it was, but they were a pretty big group saying that they would only be playing like private backyard, not private, but like more accessible, like backyard style parties, as opposed to these giant shows.
Interesting, because I was thinking about this was all kind of a fight against the industry and the price of albums and also piracy at the time. And it feels like it never could get off the ground. Like they walked so someone else could run, but no one got the chance to run with this one because of streaming services coming in. And so I was like, outside of like Napster, which was still technically like piracy, what was like the first music streaming service? And it turns out Spotify actually launched in 2008. So this album came out with this, and then immediately after.
Was Spotify's business model streaming even at that time, or were they doing something else?
It was music streaming. They wanted to be a legal alternative of file sharing.
Okay.
And it seems like they are the only ones that got like really moved forward with it.
And they probably said something to the effect of, well, we'll make sure that we pay our artists, Yeah, bullshit.
Look how that went.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's time to call the stream for the night, unfortunately. Was there any final thoughts for the evening?
Well, I really love the album. It's one of my favorites.
I really enjoyed listening to it. I hadn't realized before that I hadn't listened to the whole thing. I listened to the extended version, but
I've never done that.
Still not my favorite. My favorite is still Between the Bends and
Sorry, I accidentally clicked the X instead of moving it forward, but I've
now I can see you guys.
Yeah. Okay, Computer and the Bends are still my favorites.
Okay, Computer for me too.
Tim, are you inspired to listen to more Radiohead?
I wish I could be positive and say
you can not enjoy something. That is an option.
No, I won't say because I worry that would be viewed as me criticizing the work, and I don't want to do that because I honestly don't understand the work enough to be able to criticize it in any kind of intelligent fashion. So for me, it just is what it is, and it just doesn't really speak to me, and I can't see myself, maybe I'll try another Radiohead album, like I'll take Miguel's recommendation and see. But honestly, I'm working through the collected works of Black Sabbath, listening to the bass to see how Geezer Butler evolved over a 15-year period. And so, that to me is more interesting than trying to find a way into Radiohead.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think it's fair to say that I wouldn't confuse Radiohead with Black Sabbath, and I agree.
Oh, well, honestly, while I was listening to this, I was thinking about the limitations of the vocal melodies, and it reminds me a lot of Ozzy's limitations as a vocalist and as a melody writer, because the melodies don't really move a lot. They kind of stay, they'll pick a general tone, and the melodies will stay near that tone and not go in too many places, and I find that so uninteresting, which is why I always found Ozzy's voice so uninteresting, although admittedly Tom is a hell of a lot better singer than Ozzy Osbourne ever was. And the bass, you know what? On some of the tracks, the way the bass was being played, it reminded me a lot of early Sabbath. You know, in maybe the first 5 or 6 years, just the first track, 15 Steps, opens with some really, or I think it was 50, or maybe it was one of the other tracks near that, where I hear this really distorted bass on it, and that was when I started thinking, oh my God, I'm listening to somebody who's been listening to Sabbath when they're writing their tunes.
Yeah, there's some great bass lines on this album.
Yeah.
Like, and also highly arranged. There's some like minimalist bass lines where he sits out half the track, plays a few notes, and then sits out the rest of the track. But it's really, really effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of sophistication to the music in here, but because there are vocals on it, I was trying to figure out where everything fit as a package, including the vocals. So I would like, oh, that's cool groove. I have no idea what these vocals have to do with that, but okay.
I think you kind of have to take Tom's vocals as just another instrument in the mix.
Yeah, that may be. And that's most evident on something that's very atmospheric like Nudes. It really, on that particular track, it does feel like the words are not as important as the tone of his voice and the notes that he's choosing to put that melody on.
Yeah, you want some more traditional rock vocals, go and listen to OK Computer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you reminded me of like early REM stuff where the vocals were arguably mixed too low, right? And the lyrics were really, that was at his, the first couple albums. It's really hard to understand what the lyrics are on the REM stuff. So, and those two guys get on like a house of fire. They're really fast buddies, and I can see some definite similarities between Michael Stipe and Tom on that level.
What if you were to call, what is the style of this music you would associate with the style? What would you call this style of music?
Oh geez, I don't know. It's kind of proggy.
Does it have a genre, or is it?
I don't know.
A young friend of mine recently had an argument with me. We were talking about indie rock, and I was saying, well, that's a method of distribution and a method of production. That's not a genre of music. And he's saying it is now. It's a genre of music. So, is this what he's talking about when he says indie rock is actually a sound?
No, indie rock tends to be more folky sounding.
Yeah.
And more
REM,
progressive,
right?
I think that Radiohead falls into the alternative rock if we're doing generalized genres kind of thing,
Yeah.
but it's a lot more experimental and a lot more artsy.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe art rock, or I think even a little bit maybe in progressive, but I think it would be more, the general thing for it is alternative.
Yeah.
I would also say that OK Computer is a different genre and Kid A is a different genre.
The sophistication of the music on this album made me lean towards proggy, but not just straight prog. It feels like there's a whole bunch of different shit.
Yeah, well, kind of like Pink Floyd prog, where there's a song and there's melodies, right? And it's not just the kind of wee wee diddly diddly virtuosity stuff.
Wee wee diddly diddly, I love it.
But no, seriously, that I think there's a lot in common with Pink Floyd in that it's prog but accessible, or the early Genesis stuff with Peter Gabriel, prog but accessible. Like there's songs there, there's melodies there, as opposed to 15-minute drum solos.
Like pop prog, like a poppy prog. Interesting. So you're telling me, Beckett, that OK Radio is more like what is it called? OK Radio?
OK Computer.
OK Computer. OK Computer is more like a traditional rock album sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, they were kind of more of a traditional rock band then, but it's pretty experimental, and I wouldn't say that because then somebody will say, "Well, you mean like Leonard Skinner?" It's like, "Oh no."
There's still a lot of electronic instruments and things, but it's more, his vocals are much more like what you would think of as like a rock vocalist.
Okay.
And there's a lot more like actual instruments going on and drum set and things like that.
Yeah, it's a band album.
I'll take a look at that one.
Yeah.
I can make some space for that at the very least.
Yeah, do that and then check back in with
Report
us.
back.
Yeah.
Report back.
Yeah. And Paranoid Android on that album is one of their best songs, and it's not unlike Pink Floyd in certain aspects. You know?
Interesting. I'll
In
listen
my
to it.
humble opinion.
I'll listen to it on the way to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
Let us
please
know.
do. Let us know how it goes.
Amazing.
All right.
And on that note, I'm going to end the stream for tonight. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope to catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye, stream.
Bye.